My name is Nate.
My name is Mike.
And what the hell was that?
Oh, my man. I feel so personal and yet so not.
Yeah, I fucking hated this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated it. And we have a lot to talk about. We're going to do something a little bit differently today. Typically, we give some baseline thoughts, and then we get into the plot,
Right.
and then we maybe talk a little bit more at length about it.
Right.
But Mike and I discussed that for this movie, it might be best for us to hit the plot first.
Just get through the story first, yeah.
Yeah. However, before we do that, I think it's important to mention our unofficial mascot for the What the Hell Was That podcast, my wonderful cat Whiskers, unfortunately is no longer with us. She unfortunately had to be put to sleep due to some emergency medical problems that we weren't aware of. But we love Whiskers, and she is still with us in spirit.
Dude, it was so weird earlier today because you were like on the computer and I started to develop this habit in this room. Whenever I like make a point to the world or the skies, as I do, I just kind of speak to the room. I would like turn to Whiskers and be like, "Right, Whiskers," and then like I turned to say like, "Right," and saw the litter box absence, and I was like,
Yeah, I know. I kind of do this. I would talk to her as well in a similar manner.
Yeah, I was like, I have no one to project my agreeance onto anymore.
Yeah, right.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, no, it's definitely feels a little bit lonely without her.
Oh, I could imagine, yeah, without the activity.
Yeah. And I definitely want to get another cat,
activity.
but I don't want to do that until I'm situated in my new living situation.
Yeah.
But Whiskers was a wonderful cat. And unfortunately, we actually only had her for a couple months.
Yeah.
It's October now, and we got her in February. And the night that she passed, or I suppose the morning she passed, was right after Mike and I recorded our episode for Halloween 2? No. What was it?
Venom,
what did we see?
Venom?
Yes, you're right. You're right. We went and saw Venom, and then we came back, and she was as active as ever.
Yeah.
In fact, more active, I would say.
Magnetically drawn to a keyboard, one might say.
Yeah, but... Yeah, so it was quite the shock when I had to take her to the vet very early in the morning. And it was also a shock for Mike when he woke up and heard the news. So
yeah, we had two cats. One is very old and getting to the end. And so when you tell me one of the cats died, like, dude.
Yeah, no, it was quite the shocker.
What the fuck?
But again, Whiskers will be very well missed, and you can... send your condolences to her and
oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, that'd be so magnificent. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
And so on with Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, boy, let me tell you. All right, I don't know how well you recollect it, but I feel like if I had to like frame a sitcom, it would probably follow the same kind of beats. So I'll go with what would happen in a sitcom, and we'll run with that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right, so it opens with him typing on his computer, like, Dear Evan Hansen, in, like, his favorite text editor. Microsoft Word.
VS Code.
You know, if you have racing mind thoughts, imagine those. Look.
Oh, man.
My mind's pretty active. I don't have a quiet mind, it chatters. It does the things where, it's just like, what do I, it goes outside of myself and looks back at me and thinks, what do I think I look like right now? Let me double think what I'm just thinking. Let me think about this again. And so there's a lot of chatter. I don't know if there are people who have it to like a magnitude that this character seems to be portrayed to have it. I think when anxious people in TV get portrayed, I don't know how accurate it is because I only know my anxiousness, or at least I don't like the word anxiousness because I don't know how much it specifically describes. Maybe I just don't like the label that comes with it because, like, if I tell you, like, I've spent an unordinary amount of time outside of a grocery store just sitting in my car because I'm like, dude, once I get out of this car, I have to, like, go into a fucking store and be around people and then you get a sense of descending fear. It's a pretty dead ringer for anxiety, isn't it? So it's like these types of things where it's like, but I don't like that phrase because I think it implies a kind of like, I don't know what it implies. Probably cowardice. Probably that's the word that my like. Bro, I'm not coward. Anyway.
Anyway, Evan Hansen is like, well, dear Evan Hansen. Oh no, that's stupid.
Yeah,
dumb.
Exactly. And it feels cartoony to me. It feels inaccurate, and I don't know if there's people who have that level of anxiety riddenness where it's like so quick paced and so constantly rabbit holey. I don't know, but it makes me kind of roll my eyes because I go, these are my people. I go, these are the people speaking on behalf of me. When I have to talk to like some fucking family member and they go, do you experience anxiety? And I go, oh, totally. Are they going to get like a fucking frame as like this fucking dude? Anyway, I don't know. Yeah, so he's writing his word and he's like, dear Evan Hansen, today is going to be the best day ever. Why? Because all you have to be is yourself and confident and interesting and other things like funny and relaxed, but still you, like you among else, but a more confident, interesting version of you. Just like don't come off as like but you're not uninteresting. So like you don't have to think about not coming off as interesting because that way. But why are you thinking about it? If just forget about it, it doesn't matter. So it's like this type of thing.
Backspace.
Backspace. He's still working on it. And he saves it to his cloud drive because he has access to it at school later. But anyway, yeah.
And then he goes downstairs to see his mother. Well, no. Oh God, no, he doesn't. He fucking sings first.
Okay, well, look, it's a musical, and it's unfortunate because I know you haven't seen too many musicals.
Yeah.
And there's musicals I like.
I like Dr. Horrible sing-along blog.
Huh?
I like Dr. Horrible sing-along blog.
I haven't seen that in a hot minute.
It's a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's a musical. Problem being, I don't know. I don't like modern music that much. And, well, here's the thing. Like, musicals seem to have taken a less orchestral bend, I guess.
Yeah, that was something I kind of noticed as well. It was very, just either piano or acoustic guitar driven.
Right.
Which, yeah, I feel like one of the big things of a musical is you want it to be this big, epic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which none of it was.
Yeah, I don't know, right? I don't know. Maybe I just have some walls up against it because I was so fucking disdained with the film premise in itself.
Yeah.
So maybe I was just the music sucks too. Anyway, so yeah, he does sing about
something.
I'm trying to remember. For the life of me, I'm trying to remember.
It's just
I know
I'm
one
anxious and I don't want to be.
Yeah, more or less. He's just like, man, I'm so scared to show my true self because I don't think people will like me. Have you ever been scared to show your true self because you think people won't like you? I don't even know if I even exist to most people. But then again, do I only not exist to most people because I hide away and I don't show them my true self? I don't feel worthy. The song. And so
and then mid-song he goes downstairs to his mother and she's like, I got to go to work, so you got to take the bus.
Well, she's like, you didn't eat again? She's like, I left you money to order pizza, or you could have used the card to order pizza. You didn't even have to interact with anybody. You just had to do it online. And he's like, no, it's not true. The card's expired, so I'd have had to have given him cash at the door, and then it just wouldn't work that way. It's terrible.
Get a new card then.
I can't. Well, yeah, maybe she just doesn't know it's expired, or maybe
that's such an easy fix.
Well, maybe it's just part of the plot line. They have some financial turbulence. So
that's stupid. I also am broke. I had to get a replacement card on Wells Fargo. While I waited for my card to come in the mail, they fucking made it available on Apple Pay. So I could use my debit card before my debit card even got here.
Right. Okay, point B, my point here is A, you don't have kids. B, that's a debit card, not a credit card, as in you had money in your account. And so a lot of credit cards run on we'll let you run this much into the negative, just pay a minimum on your bill before you pay it back. So maybe she's already operating in the red and has a lot of debt, and the card's expired because it's money she didn't have in the first place, and,
Well, it's dumb. And either way,
Okay,
I think it's really funny because they had to like kind of like rush the conversation because like
Right.
the music is still going on in the background.
Right.
So like they have like X amount of bars that they have to speak before like the next part of the music is supposed to start.
Yeah.
So like you have to talk within a certain time period.
Right. She's like,
did you write the letter to yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
You're a
Doing the letters.
therapist.
And she's like, and well, look, this is an important point real quick. There's a thing about people who, and I don't know if this is a fucking generational thing or whatever, but I refuse to believe that there's people who are just unfamiliar with the idea of feeling like anxiety and being like anxiety ridden or whatever. I don't know. But the mom seems to be the concept of anxiousness and just general unhappiness seems so foreign to her that she doesn't know how to relate or talk to the person across the table at all about feelings of anxiousness or general unhappiness. And so she's trying in a very like, cheer on up, kiddo kind of way to be like, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that make you feel happier? And the kid's like, the problem's much deeper than that in so many words. And so she has that kind of thing, like, that's portrayed well enough where it's like people who just don't struggle with that stuff, which seems fucking bonkers to me. Like everyone at a certain level does, right? Right? I'm not crazy. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But like, yeah, so she's having trouble relating to him and like trying to comfort him, and that's pretty evident. So he goes on out the door and on to school and finishes his song about like, am I not seen because I hide away? Am I not seen because I hide away? Does everybody hide away? Da 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 da.
And then he's in the gym.
Yes.
And everybody's getting ready for assembly of some sort. And he sits next to his pal at like, it seems to be like a little table off to the side where he is managing like the audio. Like he has like a little sound mixer. I think he's like handling the PA and stuff.
Yeah.
And so then while another student is giving a talk to the rest of the student body, Evan and his friend, who I don't know the name of,
neither do I.
just talk. And he's like, oh, how was your summer? Oh, it was great. I did this, this, and this. How was your summer? It was bad. I broke my arm.
Well, first Evan stares fixated, unflinchingly, at the girl he has a searing crush on. She plays guitar in the band, the school band. Anyway.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
he stares at her, and his friend is like, you should just talk to her. And he's like, oh, I'm so nervous, though. Let me establish how nervous I am more now. And so there's that. And yeah, and then they talk about what they did with their summers.
Yeah, then he's in the hallway, and he's trying to get into his locker. You see that there is another boy on the other side of the hallway in his locker, and then like a jock type fella comes by and is like, hey, Connor, nice nail polish. It makes you look like a school shooter.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
And then they laugh because that's just so funny.
And then Evan, like, looks over and sees this, and I guess does like a very nervous laugh because he doesn't know how to handle the situation.
Yeah, well, they make eye contact, and he tries to like smile at him.
And then Connor, the boy who was just being bullied, comes up to him. He's like, "You think that's funny?" And he's like,
right.
No. And then he's like, well, then why are you laughing? And then like gets really up in his face and yells. And then Evan is clearly very shooken by this.
And the hall that was bustling with noise previous to that line has fallen completely silent, and everyone turns and stares.
And Connor walks off in a huff rather quickly.
Yeah, he's pretty huffy.
Evan is just shaking in his boots at the exchange that just happened.
Right.
And then who else but the guitar player from the band waltzes on over and it's like, hey, I'm really sorry that happened. My brother can be quite a handful.
Yeah.
And then she's like, can I shake your hand? And then he's like, I have
really
to
wish
go
that's
now.
exactly what it was.
And
she's like, I'd like to shake your hand.
I mean, without the verbiage, that more or less is what happens.
She introduced herself. She's like, hey, I'm Zoe.
I mean, I don't know. I struggled to remember any moments in high school where I was like, oh, wow, it's nice to meet you, classmate. Put her there.
Oh, 100%. I was going to ask that where I was like, do people like introduce themselves with fucking handshakes in high school these days? Is that what they do? Plus, maybe I went to a small high school. But I knew the names of the people in my class, even if I didn't talk to them.
I also did.
Like I'd seen the faces, you know.
Actually, that being said, I do
wouldn't
feel
have to
like
be
when graduation.
Hey, I'm Michael. Like, you know, I'd be like, no,
Yeah.
I've seen you in science or some shit.
I agree, but to be fair, I do feel like when I was at graduation, like there were like names that were being said, and it was like
Who?
yeah, I don't think I ever met that person.
Yeah, right, fair.
But anyway, Evan then saunters off to the bathroom where he then throws up, I believe, into the toilet, and then he tries to get his medication from his pocket that I assume is for his anxiety.
Yeah.
And then he drops them all over the bathroom
Right.
floor.
I forgot about that.
And then he picks it up and blows it, and then presumably takes it.
Yeah.
And then there's some dumb shot of like a computer lab, and everybody's like coding.
Coding, yeah.
And so I guess that's the thing they do now.
Yeah, it's a course that I wish they had when I was in high school. Yeah, fucking tell me about it.
Yeah, so then he goes to the library, and he's penning his letter to himself. Yeah, it more or less reads, it's going to be a good day. Be yourself. That girl is pretty neat. I wish I could talk to her.
Yeah.
That would make everything better.
Yeah.
My family just doesn't understand me.
Right.
Sincerely, me.
Right.
He hits the print button. Before he leaves, he sees that Connor is sitting at a computer near to his.
Yeah.
And Connor says to him, so you have a broken arm? And he's like,
right.
I do. And then he says, how did you break it? He says, I fell out of a tree.
Yep.
He says, well, that's lame.
That's the saddest story I've ever heard.
And then he's like, okay.
And he's like, yeah. And then he saunters off.
Yeah. And
Connor's
he goes
like, that's not how I wanted him to. That's not what I meant, my man.
Yeah.
Oh, but real quick, Evan ends the note not by saying like sincerely me. He says like sincerely your best friend, which is relevant.
That's interesting. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
So then Evan saunters over to the printer, and there's a line. He says, I'm waiting for something at the printer. And then the girl says, yeah, I know. We're also doing that.
All of us here queued in front of the printer, also waiting for things we have coming through the printer.
So while he's waiting in this printer line,
right?
Who else comes up but Connor once more?
Because he's like, hey, man, I didn't... My bad.
Okay.
He's like, no one signed your cast yet.
No.
And he's like, I can... You want me to sign it? He's like, you don't have to, like, pity sign my fucking cast, dude. And he's like, he's like, look, you got a Sharpie or what? Like, I'll sign your
shoot, if only I did, but I don't.
And he's
so
like, there's one right here. So,
oh, cool.
Don't you worry.
Yeah.
So he writes it in big, bold letter. It takes up like 40% of the cast. Like his name is like Connor from like end to end, which, you know, frankly, probably a good move because there's not going to be much ink filling up the rest of that space. And so, you know, good on him. And so he's like, there you go, signed your cast. He's like, anyway, I guess I'll go grab what I wanted from the printer, Connor says. And so Connor grabs paper from the printer, and it's like, Dear Evan, what is this? And he starts reading it, and he gets to the first paragraph about his sister, and he's like...
I think he says by name Zoe.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, the fuck? He's like, okay, so... Wait a minute, like, you talk to me while I'm sitting at the computer, right? And Evan's like, actually, you started conversation with me. He's like,
can it?
Yeah, and he's like, and then you print out this thing and make a big show of coming over here. So I come over and grab the letter, and then I read this fucking creepy shit about my sister, and like, you're just trying to get like a ride. Like, is that what it is? Like, you just think it's so funny to like piss me off? Is that your plan here,
Gentlemen,
buddy?
we are in the library. Sorry about that. Let's take this outside.
Yeah, right. Like, I was just like, real fucking funny, man. And so, like, that's a bit of a conspiracy, but whatever. I get it. Paranoia is a thing. And so, so he thinks this is also one intricate plot to embarrass him and get a rise out of him. So he's like, I'm taking this fucking letter. Fuck you, buddy. And Evan's like, oh, Christ. Oh, Christ. Oh, Christ. He's like, my super personal letter. He knows I have a crush on his sister. I didn't even talk to her. He's going to post it online. Everyone's going to know I have, like, this crush on his sister, and I will be a laughing stock, more of a laughing stock than I am right now. If anybody notices me at all, oh God. So he's like running after him, and he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, no, that's not what just don't post it online, my man. And so away Connor goes, and the school day ends.
And then montage of Evan checking every social media outlet and typing both Connor's name as well as Evan Hansen letter.
Super embarrassing letter. Creep, creep, creep.
And much to his surprise, he doesn't find a single thing.
Yeah.
And so then he comes to school the next day, and
he's talking to his friend about the letter.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh man, no, he's gonna post it somewhere, but I don't know, maybe he just forgot." And the friend's like, "No, he definitely didn't forget.
No,
he's gonna post it somewhere."
Yeah, right.
Then right on cue, the announcements go, "Evan Hansen, you're needed at the principal's office."
Yep.
And so then he goes to the principal's office, and the principal is like, "Evan Hansen." Everybody calls him Evan Hansen, first and last name.
Yeah.
Evan Hansen, Connor Murphy's parents are here. They want to speak to you in private. And he's like, oh, geez. And then he goes and speaks with them.
To be fair,
private.
He says Connor Murphy's mom and stepfather, but, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
I think the principal's a she. Anyway.
So he then meets with Connor Murphy's mother and stepfather.
Yeah.
And they're more or less like...
They're talking about Connor in a lot of past tense words.
Yeah. This letter is for you. And then she hands him the letter that...
Connor wanted you to have it.
Mm-hmm.
He thought it would be a good idea. It's like that type of shit.
Yeah. And then Evan's just like, oh, what?
And somehow doesn't catch on to the past tense word stuff. Or if he does, he's just not bringing it up.
Yeah, and then finally the stepfather's like, the boy killed himself. And then he's like, what?
Yeah,
he's like, the boy killed himself. Much to his credit, because I did not necessarily expect this to be the case. Immediately he's like, oh, no, you misunderstand.
Yeah.
This letter is not written by Connor. And then the stepfather immediately is like, oh, Jesus Christ, why the hell are we even here then? And then the mother's like, no, of course you did. And then Evan, being the anxious person he is, it's like, yes, he did. I misspoke. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, like it's pretty clear that the mom has put a lot of emotional weight behind this letter, and it's just like, it's just good to know that my boy had some words he wanted to get out.
We didn't even know he had any friends.
Yeah, it's like we knew so little about him, and it's nice to see that he had somebody that he felt confident talking to. It's just so nice to see this little glimmer of humanity and wholesomeness in my son, because he was so reclusive, before he took his own life, that is. And I'm sure he wanted you to have this. And so Evan's sitting here being like, look, lady, I didn't know your kid, all right? I'll get this out of me, It's a misunderstanding, see? Don't you have work? Anyway, no, so clearly that's not the option. And so Evan just goes, oh, yeah, okay. Well, thank you. They invite him to dinner, and he's talking to his friend, and he's just like, they thought my fucking letter was like from him, and his friend's like, oh shit, like what are you going to do at the dinner? And Evan's like, I'm going to tell them the truth at the dinner. Like this is, she just seems so, I'm going to tell them the truth and what's up, and we'll just put all this behind us. It's a big misunderstanding, and we'll just clear this all up when I go have dinner with him.
So then he is at dinner with them, and both the stepfather, whose name is Larry,
right,
and Zoe, the sister of Connor,
right,
both seem kind of like, the mother obviously is just like, oh well, Connor was great,
right,
and blah blah blah. But the father and Zoe are kind of apathetic to the whole situation.
Well,
at first.
I think evidently the character of Connor had a lot of anger. And
had a lot of
pretty
baggage.
Hostile, yeah, exactly. So, I think that the mom is very much searching for a good, wholesome take on, her son post-mortem. And the sister and the stepfather, not that they aren't sad about it, but I think they kind of see that the mom's putting a lot of effort into trying to be like, my son was a good, wholesome, expressive boy, a good boy, and they're just kind of like,
right, Evan?
Yeah, like they're sad about the death, and they're dealing with like the death of it, but like seeing the mom is really, really putting in a lot of like bulwark to try to bend this to like we lost a good man today. It's like, so I think they kind of feel that energy at the dinner.
Yeah, and so it gets kind of tense because Zoe's just like, he was terrible, and that's the truth.
Yeah, well, first let's note that Evan has been invited to this dinner by the family of the girl he has a searing crush on, and that is not irrelevant to Evan Hansen.
No, certainly not.
In many ways, he now feels additional pressure to, come off well here.
Yeah.
Like whatever he's going to do, let's hope however he reveals the truth does not have the sister of this dead person, the girl he has a searing crush on, be like, "You're a fucking weirdo, my man. I don't want anything to do with you ever at all in any fantastical world or anything. So, fuck off, bud."
But yeah, so
there's that.
So the sister, after some back and forth between everybody at the table, is more or less like, Connor was a bad person, okay? Like,
Right.
I'm tired of pretending like that wasn't the case.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. And then the mom's like, no, that's not true. I mean, Evan, you know, of course.
Right.
Tell me a story
'Cause you
of
could
the
tell
good
the
things
yeah.
that Connor did.
Right, exactly. Because you could tell, like, the stepdad's kind of on board with, like, the sister.
Yeah.
Where he's like, because, like, she says, like, you agree with me. Like, why are we entertaining this? Like, like, he's not some, like, special angel person that just, like, killed himself and was this tortured, sensitive soul, like, none of that. And the mom's, so, Evan Hansen can see it's kind of like 2-on-1. And the mom's really floundering here for, like, my son was good somewhere, right?
Yeah, so he starts really carrying the team here.
Yeah, so Evan's like, I'm sure he was a good,
Tell me some specific examples.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is when he goes to, like, the tree climbing thing.
Almost immediately, yeah.
Yeah, so he starts, like, talking about that type of story.
Oh, you mean at the orchard?
Yeah, like, where the orchard used to be. Like, he took you to the orchard?
Yeah.
And Evan's just kind of like, huh? And she's like, he took you to the orchard. We went there when we were young. I can't believe he loved it so much as a kid. Well, he loved it so much. As a kid, and that's just a thing they do so often, where they're just like, he was, presumably like 17 and killed himself. So I feel comfortable making assertions about his character and his interest from when he was 6. Like, they do that throughout the entire fucking film. It's so weird. Like, there's one point where the dude's like, he loved baseball. And I'm like, did he though? I'm like, just because, like, he had fun at a game when he was like 7. Like, you're going to be like, 10 years later, just as passionate about baseball he was.
Actually, funny enough, now that you mentioned that, I didn't think about this at the time, but when the father was having that moment with Evan, he was talking about that,
right?
And he's like, "Oh man, Cynthia was really nervous about me coming around and how the kids would take to me,
right?
But Connor right away, blah, 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 baseball, Right. It's like, I'm pretty sure he said that he had been around since Connor was like 3,
right?
So does that mean like Connor at 3 years old was like, hello, Larry. Let's go have a catch.
Baseball. How's the trades turning out for the Jays this year? Yeah. No,
wow, is that a signed ball?
Yeah.
That has 3 Hall of Famers on it,
Yeah, hell if I know.
Anyway.
But yeah, so the mom's like, he loved the orchard. And so Evan is not going to be like, at this point, he's kind of caught up in it. So he's like, no, he sure did. No, yeah, we went, the orchard. And she's like, I can't believe he took you there. That's so crazy.
And
it's
then he
good
starts
to know that he
singing
still remembered
about it.
Yeah. He starts singing about how, like, oh, he was great. Oh, it was great. Oh, we went to a tree in the orchard, and I fell and broke my arm, and he took me.
He was such a good friend.
Yeah, so Evan broke his arm falling out of a tree. It's important to note this. So, like, the way he broke his arm is that, like, he had a summer job at the national park or whatever. There goes my phone. At the national park or whatever, and fell and broke his arm.
Out of a tree.
Well, yeah, it fell out of a tree that he was climbing up to see, like, like the world, and then fell out of that tree. So now he has supplemented this story, we'll say, with Connor's presence. And he goes, yeah, Connor and I were at the orchard, not my work at the forest. I work at the forest. Nice to meet you. No, I work at the national park. We were at the orchard together. And Connor said, oh, man, life can get you down. I wonder what life looks like up at the highest point in the trees, where we can see the sun and feel it on our face and feel free of this world and its burdens. And Evan goes, well, let's go find out, friend. And so they climb the tree, smiles abound, and then Evan falls, clumsy fellow that he is. And then Connor comes down and helps him and takes him to the hospital. Just two good friends trying to figure this crazy world out.
And then Zoe, if I remember correctly, is like, oh yeah, wasn't that ice cream place that we used to always go to? Oh yeah, Alamo. That's what it was called.
Yes.
And then Evan in his song goes, and then we went to get ice cream at Alamo.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So he's just grabbing at whatever comes up, and the family's like, oh, it's so great to hear you tell wonderful stories about our son. Tell more great stories about our son. And Evan's just like, okay, all right. Oh, there's so many great stories about your son.
Granted, I've never had, thankfully, a loved one like this that has taken their own life.
Right.
So maybe this does not seem like a ludicrous request in that scenario. But as somebody who has not experienced that, this seems like a strange request. But the mother then more or less goes, well, we've looked through all of his text messages and voicemails and emails and so on and so forth, and we never see any communication between the two of you.
Right.
But then again, he always had secret accounts.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because
would you
he
mind
knew we
sending?
constantly monitored his emails and text messages.
So do you mind showing me all these personal messages that you exchanged?
Yeah.
Of course I would. I could do that.
Yep. So he goes to his friend, and the friend's like, how'd they take it at dinner when you told him, the truth? And Evan's like, oh, I didn't. In fact, we need to fabricate some messages between the brother and myself. And his friend's like, all right, I'll do it for a large amount of money. And Evan's like, I don't have that much money. And his friend's like, okay, fine. I won't. We're
I'll
good
do
friends.
it for a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah. So he fabricates some emails with Evan, and there's a song about them typing it up.
Haha,
Just
so
like,
fun.
I'm Connor. I speak in an authentic voice.
He wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
Oh.
right, exactly, yeah. So, we get a sense of Connor a little bit through the song where it's just like, he, did drugs, and by drugs I mean smoked weed to cope with the depression, self-medicated, all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be implied, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't actively anymore, I'm not sure. But yeah, so it's that type of thing where we get this kind of vague sense, It's just like, he's a sad dude. Honestly, this dude sounds a lot like me.
Yeah.
Who? And so,
Well, you better not go killing yourself, or Evan Hansen might swoop in and take all the
fucking
glory.
tell me about it, yeah. No, we're past that time. But like, yeah, no, so, if I had to, it's hard for me to guess what this character's like without just like inserting projections of my own high school self, So
they fabricate some emails.
Yeah.
And then, so then Evan gives these fabricated emails to the family, and they all have their own. They have a song that they do like a like, not a duet, a triet. I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, trio.
A trio. They do a song, and it's nice. Yeah.
Basically, the mom is like, I didn't know you at all, and I'm so happy that there's some hint as to the person you were because you were so closed off, and it's so unfortunate that the only way I feel like I get to know my son at all is through these post-mortem messages, but at least they're here so that I can get to know you at least a little bit in the person you were. Because I loved you and just wanted to know more of you. And then the sister is like, you were a huge fucking dick to me throughout our entire livelihood. You were explosive and violent towards me. I felt fearful in your presence frequently. And you in no way seemed to have any remorse towards any fear that you might have put in me. And now I'm hearing that you had this sensitive, caring, other-oriented side. And I
specifically cared about me a lot.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mentioned me a whole bunch, and how much you knew about and cared about me, and it's challenging my idea of you as this monster, and I'm having trouble reconciling the idea that like the person you were had more depth and selflessness than the side I ever got to see of you. And if that's the case, then maybe your death is worth respecting more and grieving more, and you were somebody who I kind of wish I could have known more instead of this character I understood you to be. And the father's kind of like, I don't know why I couldn't save you. Like, I tried to give you everything I could, and you still killed yourself and took your own life. And it makes no sense to me how you could be this tortured when I tried to give you everything I could to make you comfortable and happy. And so that's the bend the father's kind of taking on it. Or I guess the stepfather, but it might as well be father. So that's the song.
Evan and his mother are then sitting at the table, and she's like, "Hey, I heard about this kid Connor from your school who like killed himself. Do you want to talk about that?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't really know him." She's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I mean, all the same, if you want to talk about it, I'm here. Also, here are there are all these essay prompts for colleges, and they all help significantly with paying for it, and they don't count as scholarships, so you can still get more, and every penny counts."
Right.
Ha ha ha. And then she's like, "You know what? It's Tuesday. How about we do another Taco Tuesday night?"
It's been so long since we've done Taco Tuesday.
And then he's like, "You know what, Mom? I'd really like that."
Yep. He comes
School
home.
happens, and I guess nothing eventful happens.
Well, he comes home and sees a note that's just like essays and Taco Tuesday next week, ? His mom works in the medical field, which, as we know, have very long and sporadic shifts, and also has to take up as many shifts as possible because she's a single mother caring for her child and also trying to save money for college. So she's away from the home often, working. And so Evan doesn't see too much of her. And so there's a bit of a neglect in the family life, as you might call.
Mm-hmm.
Neglecting the family life, not like a neglect of the child. But yeah.
And so then, just at that very moment, Evan gets a text message from Zoe that says, "Hey, my mom made gluten-free apple pie. Would you like to come and have some?"
And so Evan goes, "The girl I have a Syrian crush on has just invited me over to her family's house."
"Don't mind if I do."
Yeah.
So he comes over, and she welcomes him in and says, "Oh, well, we were out of ice cream, so my mom and Larry went to get some."
Right.
And so then the two of them are in the house alone, and she is like, "It's weird. I never heard anything about you. I was not close with my brother, and there are all these new revelations that are coming about. This is strange to me. Also, at some point in this conversation, I must bring up that my family is rich." And then he says, "And mine is poor. Ha ha ha." The conversation then more or less turns to, "Well, these are all the wonderful things that definitely your brother thought about you, and not my own things that I'm projecting onto you. Your brother thought this."
She's like, "It's weird to hear that like my brother had any opinions on me whatsoever, because I don't even think he like noticed or cared about me, frankly." And Evan Hansen is like, no, he noticed so many he cared so deeply for you, his sister. And she's like, "All right, go on and list them then." And Evan's like,
"He thought you were beautiful."
Yeah, right. And she's like, "Yeah, that's what I thought." And so Evan's kind of floundering, and he's like, no. He noticed things about you, and so he tries to think of what to do, and just decides, all right, I'm just gonna have to list all the things I notice about her, and how I constantly stare at her and fixate on her, and have come to know her behaviors in an intimate and deep way, mapped through my brain from all the time I spend staring and fixating on this person, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts listing those off. And she's like, "My brother did pay attention."
And then for some reason, that leads them to almost like kiss and have this intimate moment. And then the door opens, and we're back with ice cream.
Right. Yeah, this is about the point of the film where I was like, all right, well, I'm feeling less sympathy for this Evan Hansen character.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk about that more in the post. But yeah, so here we go.
Yeah,
the parents come back and have the ice cream.
They all just exchange stories and fun times. And, oh, it's so great to have you here, Evan.
Yeah.
So then at some point, the same student council president who we saw speak at the assembly at the beginning.
Bobcats!
Go Bobcats! My middle school, our mascot was Bobby the Bobcat.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Go Bobcats.
Go Bobcats. They talk and...
Well, she's like, "Hey, we're having an assembly for Connor, like a little tribute thing.
Uh-huh.
And seeing as, you two were evidently kind of close, like we want you to speak at it if you wouldn't mind. And Evan's like, I don't have anything to say. And she's like, you're kind of the dude who would have anything to say. You knew the most about this guy. So like, it's important that somebody get up there and speak about him that has an understanding about like how we think.
We? What do you mean?
Student council president who has everything so well put together.
I thought you were doing a bit. It's like, what do you mean we? Oh, well, student council members, of course.
Connor was out. He was treasurer. But no, yeah. So the student council president is like, I have this well put together veneer, but how about I sing a song explaining how I also feel sadness? And she's like, what medications are you on? I'll go first. And then she's like, antidepressant, 10 mil. Yeah. And Evan Hansen is like, antidepressant and anti-anxiety, and then like as needed anti-anxiety. So, haha. Mm-hmm. I'm more emotionally wrecked than you are. You only need 10 milligrams of depression. That's not. They don't get competitive about it. That's just me being weird. Yeah. We'll get to this in post. I'm putting a weird spin on that. They both acknowledge and are supportive of each other's mental issues the way one probably ought to be.
Yeah.
And then they talk to each other about it and sing a song about how, it's hard to keep it all together. The world's kind of, chaotic and anxiety-inducing, one might suggest. Perhaps in higher rates amongst our generation for some reason. Anyway.
I think that she's like, the Connor Project to help people like us. And then, so then they do all that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then there's a scene where...
she's like, I'm starting a thing at school. And I was like, yeah, Connor's dead and my resume does need padding.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And so then shortly after that, Evan is just hanging out at the Murphy household. And then... he starts talking about the Connor Project, and they're like, yeah, didn't that student body president who also set up that memorial tomorrow night do that? He's like, yeah. And then I think the assembly happens.
Right, it's time.
Of course, Evan decides to speak, and he has his cue cards, and he is very, very nervous and shaking and all that. And then he drops all of his things and then knocks over the microphone, and everybody laughs and pulls out their cellular devices and starts recording him. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be like he was going to wake up and it was going to be a nightmare sequence. But that was not the case. So then he shuffles back up to his feet, and then he starts singing a beautiful song, which I guess in the universe of this world translated to a speech, because people refer to it as the beautiful speech that he made.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting. Which we'll talk more about the rules of this world later. But anyway,
I think you just need to know how musicals work, my man.
All the same. I we'll get there.
All right.
I have things to say about that. He does his big musical number, and a few people put their phones away, but several people continue to keep their phones up and record this beautiful speech, and then they put it on the internet, and he goes viral.
Wow.
And that's that. And then they have a meeting for the Connor Project, and there are many, many people in attendance who were moved by Evan's speech.
Yeah.
And at this point, Elena puts forth her idea to have the orchard that has been mentioned in Evan's story be like refurbished, I guess. I don't know.
I guess it closed down.
Yeah, it was closed down.
We're going to start it again.
Exactly. And so they start a Kickstarter with a goal of $100,000.
Yep.
And so they do that, and Evan's viral video causes many, many donations.
A big cash infusion.
Yeah. So Zoe and Evan officially start dating.
Yeah, Zoe shows up at his house and then sings a song about how I like you just the way you are. And Evan's like, oh, that's incredible. And she's like, it has nothing to do with my brother's suicide or the fact that you were close friends or anything like that. I just like you. Irrelevant to recent happenings.
I think that was when I went to the bathroom.
Yeah. And so that song takes place, and then we get a montage of Zoe and Evan dating. Yay. And Evan's like, I always dreamed that you would like me just for me, and hopefully not because of this closeness I had with your brother that I've completely fabricated, but I'm not telling you that yet. And so they start dating and things are real neat. But he starts kind of neglecting his presence at the Connor project, or at least misses a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And the student council president and his friend that's like helped him fabricate like the messages and stuff like that. Like they're both kind of like, all right, guess he's not coming. So they start the meeting.
And then there's a moment with Evan and his mom at the table, and she's like, I saw this viral video of you giving a impassioned speech about your best friend Connor. You told me that you didn't know him. And he's like, Mom, I lied about not knowing him
that well. We know we are, yeah.
And then she's like, well, you also said that he was there when you broke your arm, but you said that you were alone. He's like, I lied, okay? She's like, and you said that your boss drove you. And she's like, I lied, okay? Yeah. And
so Connor all the way down.
Yeah, so he's really digging himself deep here. And she's like, okay. And then I think he might even have like a cheap shot of like, well, you'd know if you weren't at work all the time.
Whatever.
And she's just like, okay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then again, I don't think anything really important happens until
this is probably the dinner fight time.
Yeah, until it's time to go hang out with my girlfriend and her family, who thinks that I knew their dead son/brother.
And now I've taken a really big liking to me as like a surrogate son. Boy, things are working out great for me.
Also, I guess it is somewhat important to note that sprinkled in here and there are just little moments between him and the various family members, aside from the sister who he is now dating, where they're like, oh, Evan, you're great. Here's some nice moments about Connor that I'll tell you about. But also, you're great. You're like a son to us.
Right. You've really become part of the family. And not in an implied incestuous way, with you dating our daughter.
But in a totally not weird way.
In an in-law kind of way.
Yeah. And so Evan comes to hang out with his kind of surrogate family, I guess.
Yeah.
And then who else is there but his mother?
Oh, my God. The parents met each other. That's nice.
And he's like, uh-oh, this can't end well.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, Christ.
Yeah, and so they're all hanging out, and his mom seems like visibly uncomfortable by all this because she didn't even know about the supposed friendship between he and Connor.
Right.
And then in addition, he's just being awfully chummy with the family that she had no idea was existing.
Yeah, and clearly he has some, basic teenage resentment towards his mother. And so, he's a bit crass towards her, and the family's kind of, richer and disconnected. And so
Evan, just like our son, haha.
Huh?
They're like, oh, Evan, you're just like our son, ha ha ha.
Right, yeah. So, Evan likes this other family a whole lot, and is kind of like a crass dick to his own mom.
For no good reason.
Well, I mean, who wasn't a teenager with emotional issues?
Yeah, but no good reason.
I was a crass dick towards my own mom a couple times. I have a story that really sticks in my mind. Anyway.
But yeah, so that it all culminates with then the family being like, well, Evan's mom, whose name we don't know, we had heard that things were a little bit tough for you financially, and we would like to give you a gift for all that you have done for us and our family. We have been fortunate enough to have this money that we had set aside for Connor for when he went to college, but we'd like to give that to Evan so that he can follow his dreams, if that's okay with you.
'Cause that's what Connor, our dead son, would have wanted, since you're so close. I can't think of any better way to put Connor's money to use than to give it to his good friend, his good close friend, Evan. You.
Yeah, it's not like there's, some kind of...
most deserving of our dead son's money.
It's not like there's any kind of memorial that's happening that could use some money.
That's when I was in there, I was like, if I was Evan, this is when I'd be like, all right, look, this is probably as good a time as any. I'm so sorry.
But no, he's more or less like, well, I mean, if you're going to offer it, but the mom's
he doesn't have to confront that because the mom very quickly is like, I don't know what impression you got, but we're not looking for handouts and we're not strapped for money. We're financially secure. We'll figure out how to pay the tuition, and anything lacking, Evan will be able to make up for through Joe or whatever. But like, we don't need handout money. And the parents are like, oh, no, we didn't mean for it to imply like a charity. Like, no,
Good
no,
day,
please,
sir.
by all means. And
I
the mom's
said
like,
good day.
I was like, I understand and I appreciate it, but honestly, we're fine. So like, I think I'm done. Yeah, I think I need to get to work.
And yeah, so then she walks out, and then Evan follows behind her, and they have a back and forth little confrontation where he's like, "You're never around." She's like, "I love you," and he's like, "But I'm such a burden to you," and
Yeah,
she's like,
exactly.
But I love you. You're not a burden. I'm here for you through all the things that trouble you.
Yeah. He has
and,
his outpouring of his distortions, where he's just like, I know that you hate me and I ruined your life and I make you have to work so hard to support me. I'm a big sandbag, a big emotional and physical sandbag on you. And Ma's like, that is the complete opposite is how I feel about you, and I hope you see that. Now I'm going to go to work. Then student council president is like, hey, man,
Yes.
you missed the meeting. And he's like, I know, I'm sorry I missed the meeting. Like, but, and she's like, look, I don't mean to tell you how to handle your business, but, like, you're a close friend, and I think it's really important that you be there, for like, the whole, to show you really care and are really looking forward to this type of thing. And he's like, look, man. She's like, look, the money slowed down. We didn't get as much as we were hoping for. Like, it's getting a bit of a cross. We really need you here to help pull this effort together. And Evan's like, look, the orchard isn't Connor himself. Like, it's okay if it doesn't pan out. It's quite fine. And, the student council president kind of gets, like, her spider senses tingling from this. And she's like, look, I've been thinking, like, I know this might sound crazy, but
Were you and Connor even friends?
were you, like, really as close as you're, like, building it up? Because, like, you tell this story about, like, the tree and how you fell off, and in the emails it says it happened in June, but we were in school in June last year, and like you didn't have the cast until September. And Evan's like, yeah, we just got the dates mixed up. And she's like, look, it's not just the dates, man. Like, your whole attitude, doesn't seem indicative of somebody who was super close to the guy who killed himself. And it seems like the foundation and myself even are kind of like more behind the idea of like getting this money and fulfilling this kid's purported dream than you are. Like, I just need you to be honest with me. If this is fabricated or even like blown up, like, just tell me, like, did you lie to me about this? And like, am I lying to all these people about this? And Evan's like,
Read this email.
yeah, he's like, no, we were really close. Like, no, I'm not, I'm not lying. And he's like, look, I have proof. So he sends her the Dear Evan Hansen letter from the beginning that Connor, like, stole and the parents thought was his, like, suicide note type thing. And Evan Hansen is like, look, we shared all the emails that we communicated with, but I never shared the actual quote unquote, because we know it's Evan Hansen's personal letter, but it's understood to be the suicide note by everybody. So he's like, I never shared his suicide note with anybody else. It's just me and the family. So he's like, so I'm just going to send this to you to prove to you, look, it's addressed to me. It says Dear Evan Hansen and says all this stuff. Like, this should be proof positive that in his suicide note, he left this to me. He wouldn't have addressed this to me if we didn't have this fundamental closeness that he felt he needed to leave me a message before he took his own life. So just, A, keep this secret. Like, don't tell anybody I shared this with you because nobody else has seen this besides me and the family. But B, take this as the proof you need to know that I am being 100% honest with you when I tell you that me and this teenager who killed himself were very close. Very close. And everything that has been done in his legacy and that I've said to help him and his family has been 100% honest and very true and very righteous.
And she more or less was like, wow, I'm so sorry I ever doubted you.
Yeah, and she's like, that's
heavy, man.
Yeah, that's, I'm sorry. Point being, again, for his, like, we need the money to come in for this orchard. So please, like, just anything you can come up with. I'm going to brainstorm ideas at home. Like, let's get this money. And Evan's like, okay, fine. Let's do it.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but then I think it more or less jumps straight to her being like, well,
Yeah.
I know a way to drum up some money for this thing. Let me post this heartfelt letter, or not
Yeah.
letter, this. Let me post this suicide note that shows
Yeah.
how close these two were.
Yeah,
Nothing
exactly.
could possibly go wrong with that. And
Right.
so, yeah, she does that.
Yeah.
and things go wrong with that.
Well, so one of the key paragraphs in the letter is like, my family doesn't understand me, and like I wish they could know the real me and stuff like that. So people see his quote unquote suicide note now, and it's like, his family life must not have been too great if he was like, I'm going to kill myself, and I am the suicide note write and type, and I'm going to write a suicide note to my good friend, but nothing to my family. And so there, online, there's a bunch of comments that are like, his family must really suck if he decided to write a note to his friend and not his family. And B, his family is pretty rich, from what I understand. Why are we all crowdfunding his orchard dream if his family has a bunch of money? Like, anyone else think it's weird that there's a really rich family asking for crowdfunding money? And these are kind of the two bends that it takes. So everyone online is now kind of like, fuck this dude's family, fuck this dude's family. His family must be terrible if this is how he decided to end his life and leave a note to only his friend. And so Evan Hansen isn't mad, and he's not like going to the student council president like, the fuck. Like, he tries to call her, and she sends it straight to voicemail because she knows. She knows what she's done. And so Evan Hansen goes over to the family, because he's like, oh shit. Well, he goes to the party that Zoe was at because she left because, this is all blown up and everyone's kind of looking at her. So she goes to be with her family, and Evan Hansen goes over to the family's house, and Zoe opens the door and is like, things are really not good here right now. And he's like, I know, but I felt like I should have been here, or I should be here now. And so the family starts having it out about, oh, you weren't a good enough mother to your son, and the mother like, oh, you weren't a good stepfather to him. You never cared about him the way I did. And the internet. And so things are getting really riled up here. The family's getting really deep into an argument.
Some way or another, then the mother then goes, come on, Evan, back me up, right?
Yeah, you knew Connor. And Evan, at this point, it's boiled up. And he was just like, no. I didn't know him that well. He didn't.
Then,
I wrote the letter. He didn't write the letter. I wrote the letter.
Piano sting. Din, 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 din. I didn't know your son.
Yeah, more or less. And
when he killed himself.
What? Yeah.
I didn't know your son.
Yeah, because he's just like, and I'm gonna rip into this a little bit, but it's really hypocritical for me to do it because I know I do this type of shit all the time. But anyway, so he's like, it was a therapy practice. I was supposed to write letters to myself. I wrote them to myself. He saw a printout of it, took it, and then just kind of kept it. He must have had it on him when you found his body, and so he explains the situation exactly as it happened. And then it's like, look, I know I should have come clean about this sooner, but I just really got caught up in this very wonderful support and family fabric and this really beautiful caring thing. I've never had that in my life, and I know that doesn't justify it. So now, if you don't mind, if I continue to talk about how much this meant to me and why I did exactly what I did. And again, this isn't an excuse, it's just an explanation, but somehow I feel compelled to talk about my explanation more and more and more and more and more and more, and at the end, maybe you'll feel that it excuses me, maybe just a little, but I'm not saying it should be an excuse, but, maybe I'll just keep talking about it here, and, so he does all of that, where he's just like, what's really interesting is there's a line where he's just like, where you see everything you ever wanted, meaning, the family, the mom caring and the dad being like, it's real cool, I'm getting to know my son through you, and the sister, of course, dating him, to put it diplomatically.
Yeah.
And so he goes to see everything you ever wanted right in front of you, and then it pans to a shot of the mother looking terribly broken at the laptop, and the father just dejected, and the sister looking like she's been dating and has started to fall in love with an absolute monster of a human being. And that's the shot it pans to when he's like, everything I've ever wanted, right in front of me. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And so
the song ends, and then the mother's like, I think it's time for you to leave now.
Yeah, please go. Oh, God.
Then I guess he is...
Well, it's the next day at school.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Zoe's at the locker, and he goes up to her, and she's like, go away. And he's like, look, just real quick, I need to tell everybody that I fabricated this. The family shouldn't hold the burden of, people's rage and anger towards, the son or how neglected he was or why he killed himself or anything like that. It's they need to know I made this up. And so he's like, my mom is the one that's going to make this decision about how she thinks her son's death should be viewed. And she doesn't want it to come out that you fabricated all this because she's afraid that you're going to do something like kill yourself because she knows you're not in the best place mentally or emotionally. And if everyone starts hating you, she thinks it's going to lead you to do something crazy. And she said to me, quote, "I've already lost one son. And so, if you wouldn't mind, can you please just leave my family alone? Please." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, that's fair." And she leaves.
She does. Then I don't think anything really eventful happens at school. And then his mother comes home, I guess, that evening. And she's like, "Evan."
Yeah, and like, fuck them for the framing on this.
Yeah.
'Cause they kind of he's not responding. And like she goes upstairs and she's still like, "Evan," and he's not responding. And she like slowly opens the door to his room. And then he's just crying. He's just having a good cry in the fetal position. He hasn't killed himself. But like, fuck them.
Yeah,
for
no,
that
they
framing.
definitely
Like,
they imply
really?
otherwise.
I was like, what is this? Anyway,
So then he goes down and sits on the couch with his mom,
yeah.
and she's like, "When your dad left, this is what happened."
Well, he tells his mom the truth.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "I made it all up," you know? And she's like, "I had no idea." And he's like, I know. And she's like, "No, I had no idea how much you were hurting. I'm so sorry." And he's like, "I need to tell you something else." And she's like, "What?" He's like, "When I fell from the tree and broke my arm, I didn't fall. I jumped. Like I was trying to, I don't know if I was trying to kill myself, but like I dropped and was prepared to let whatever happened." And she's like, "Oh my God, I had no idea that you were like that close to the edge, that you would do something like that." And then she regales him with the story as like when he was a kid, how he was scared because his father has left. And she promised him that she's not going anywhere and she's not giving up on him. And she just doubles down on that point now and is like, "I'm here for you and I love you. You're a great joy in my life. I love you." And he's like, "Thanks, Mom." So then he goes upstairs and records like an Instagram post where he's just like, "I made it all up, world. Yeah, I made it all up. I made it all up. So if you have any anger about whatever, just direct it towards me because I made it all up."
And the world is pretty angry.
The orchard has successfully gotten funding, and nobody removed their funding or demanded their money back. More power. They're better people than I would expect internet people to be.
Yeah.
Because I know
Well,
a
I
ton
guess
of
at the end
people
of the
would
day,
be
it's
like,
like-
"I gave my money to a lie. Fuck you."
Well, I guess the thing is, though, is that whether or not Evan lied, Connor is, in fact, still dead, and it's still a memorial to him.
Yeah, but the idea that he wanted an apple orchard to be erected from his childhood is a complete fabrication.
No, that's true. No, you're absolutely right.
So I don't know. I don't know what the fellow would have wanted, but frankly, if you're going to use... And again, we'll get to this in the post. But anyway, yeah, so he's like, "All right, world, so the funding for the apple orchard's been secured. The apple orchard gets erected, and Evan, to atone for his piggybacking off this kid's death for social capital...
So dumb.
He decides, like, you know what? I'm actually going to take the time to try to get to know this person post-mortem. And fortunately enough, this person was interesting and had some depth to them. Because my first thought was like, you know, what would have been interesting is if, like, the friend character, you know, like the one that's always like, they think you're banging.
Yeah.
Oh, always making like little sex jokes and stuff. And like, oh, they think you're gay or whatever. Like, if that kid killed himself and Evan had to do like a little like post-piggybacking... like time to get right. I'm going to try to get to know this kid post-mortem. There wouldn't be any of this interesting stuff to dig up. Like, we're lucky this kid who killed himself was a sensitive, deep-thinking individual. Because if it was like the friend character, he'd be like, "I really want to get to know this person." And then he'd go pick up like his 101 sex jokes to tell at parties book.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "I don't know that I found anything of worth in this person post-mortem," right? You know?
Yeah, I
So
know.
like, luckily enough, in the yearbook, this really antisocial, dejected kid cared enough about his quote in this school yearbook to leave a list of books. Because fortunately, he was an avid reader. How cool is that? And so Evan Hansen gets to get a little bit closer to what we learn now as a interesting and somewhat deep-thinking individual by his book selection. So Evan Hansen reads some of his books and feels closer to him that way and gets to understand a bit of the words that spoke to this person's soul, because this person clearly had some depth of soul to speak to. Thank God.
That's one of the silly things, though, to me. It's like when you were fabricating the story of how close you were with him, why didn't you do that then?
Yeah,
like, do your
right.
homework, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, evidently there was something
Yeah.
that if anyone had even a cursory interest in this person could very easily be like, oh, well, here's a list of books that he conveniently listed in the yearbook that seemed to be the ones that really spoke to his soul. Huh. Anyway. So then he also he finds the place that he was housed in, a temporary rehab mental facility.
Well, no, not quite. He just more or less starts reaching out to people on like Facebook and stuff. It was like, you're tagged in this picture with him. Can you tell me some stories about him?
Right. Well,
and
the
most of the
picture
thing
is the
comes up
mental
to
health
be dry
facility.
leads, except for one person who's like, hey, this other person probably knew him because they were in the same facility.
Right.
And so then he emails that person. And the person's like, here's a video. That hopefully this helps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he finds the facility and then starts messaging the people that's tagged in the picture of it.
Oh.
That's the photo he finds.
Okay, I caught you. I didn't catch the photo being of anything specifically significant. I guess I just wasn't looking at the screen or something when that happened. I just saw the Facebook post and was like, oh, he's just looking for people in the pictures.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah. So he reads the books, and as he's reading the books, it kind of shows that he's fallen from grace socially. All the kids at school won't sit at him, and they kind of stare at him like, "Fuck that guy," and such fair. So he's reading all these books, and then he gets the video from the guy, and the video is like a group therapy session or whatever, where Connor is playing a song that he has written on the guitar that he plays, and there's video of it. So Evan Hansen, as a final act of goodwill, sends the video footage to, I think, like the student council president and the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they get to watch the video and smile kindly. And again, thank God this person actually turned out to be pretty deep and interesting, because if none of this was there would be no sense of closure, huh? Like, thank Christ this person wasn't just like children's pool shallow.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how would we have all this wonderful stuff to pool about how he was a compassionate, sensitive soul that read books and composed music?
Or like the stories that people got back to him weren't like, oh, he was an abusive asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So he didn't really care about too much, but he talked about sex a lot.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, so thank God this person turned out to be like, I don't know, probably a writer or some shit. But yeah, so there's that. Not to shit too hard on the fictional dead person.
Yeah, no, certainly.
Anyway, we'll get into why I feel so disgruntled. Anyway, so yeah. And then finally, Evan Hansen's at the Memorial Orchard, and the sister Zoe shows up, and they go on like a final walk. And she's like, you're going away to college? And it's like, yeah, and I'm taking a break here, says Evan. And so Evan goes, Zoe, why did you ask me to like come here to the Memorial Orchard to have like our final like, I don't like you anymore, but things are cool with us, okay? And so why did you invite me here to the orchard to have this final moment? And then Zoe goes, because I wanted to make sure you see this Memorial Orchard, because, I honestly think he would have liked it. And Evan Hansen goes, it is my first time here, and kind of like laughs, where she's like, that's classic, a good move, getting me to come here. This is such a kind, thoughtful move of yours. I really admire that. And then she walks away, and then the show ends. And that's the story.
Oh my God, I fucking hated that movie.
All right. Okay.
Where do you want to start with this, Mike? Where do you want to start?
I will start with this. It is true that there is a high undercurrent of depression, anxiety, and general suicidality amidst adolescents today.
Yes.
It is a relevant factor in American society right now, and probably societies elsewhere, probably like UK and New Zealand or some shit, who knows. Maybe not. Maybe it is distinctly American. I'm not sure. Anyway, point being, this is real, and this is true, that there is somewhat of an epidemic in depression and suicidality amidst teenagers and young adolescents today, and probably over the past, 5-10 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The data's there. The numbers are high. I am probably, by all fucking measurements, amidst those people. You probably are too, frankly.
Yeah, no.
Everyone who lives in this house or has lived in this house probably is part of that.
Our landlord.
Not Ed. No, not Ed. Maybe in his own time. But yeah, so I'll start with saying that. What pisses me off,
Let him have it, Mike.
the question of how we do justice in representing this fact is one that I'm curious about because I feel I have some unpacking to do, I guess. Because my initial thought when I see these types of things is a big eye roll and a big, like, oh, fuck them, you know? Like, I, too, was sad and wanted to kill myself in high school, you know? I went to the facilities having to deal with that. I was in drug use. I had anxiety. I didn't like any of my classmates. I had a friend group, but we all felt collectively isolated and probably isolated ourselves in a way that we weren't very... I don't know that the way that we shared our vulnerability with each other was helpful as much as it was reaffirming. Sometimes expression can really be evocation, right? Like you can feel like you're expressing and sharing something, but what you're really doing is kind of evoking that within you, you know? So maybe it was something like that. But my point being, because it's so personal to me and because I have so much anger and disconnect, when I see somebody address this and have a lot of the characters come forth with this supportive kind of, I'm here for you. I see our issues and I want you to know you're not alone. I feel a lot of eye-rolling dismissal and anger and condescension to that. Because A, that wasn't my experience, but that probably wasn't my experience because I have a lot of anger and I'm pretty cynical in the modern sense of cynical, and that I just I'm paranoid and don't trust stuff like that. So if someone came up to me and was like, I see you and care about you, I would do everything within my power to either try to invalidate that or just tell them to fuck off because I was that kind of angry and I'm that kind of angry. So there's a bend I take where when I see people who clearly struggle with the same stuff I struggle with, and the representation of it and the addressing of it is wholesome, oh my God, it makes me want to vomit. And this is doubled in the idea of, I don't know that anybody who writes these plays or produces them has an honest horse in this race at all.
Yeah.
I get the supreme sense that it's a bunch of people who have never struggled with these things in any kind of constantly haunting way like the characters they're trying to represent do, and they are trying to have like a second-hand understanding of mental depression issues, and the way that they understand how to handle and address them come from some after-school special nonsense about like how all you really need to do is show them that you care and you're there for them. And the way these characters are written and the way that they express themselves don't seem indicative to me of the fucking horror show that is actual mental illness. And so I don't know. Evidently, the stage play, the story, has touched a lot of people that struggle with the stuff I struggle with. So far be it from me to invalidate their connection and hope drawn from it. But it feels so disingenuous on the screen that I sincerely hope that the stage play touched a nerve that was more true, more genuine, and the people who handled the stage production came off with a more genuine way, let alone the idea that they might actually have had real, genuine experience and really wanted this play to affect people in a positive, kind of knowing, seeing way. Because that is not the sensation I got from this film at all, leaving aside my own kind of bend and anger and dismissal towards the wholesome and supportive. When I'm putting that aside, I can say I really do value that. I think that's great. And I really do love the idea of stories that present that and kind of show that as an alternative and encourage that. But it seems like the people who were in charge of putting this on screen didn't care about that at all, let alone giving proper respect to even a fictional character who killed themselves, and the kind of framing of the story being like, we understand this person's nervous, but it's one big hodgepodge of mental issues.
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, again, it's like a fictional death, but all the same, it's like the Connor is a prop.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a person, he's a prop.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like one of the only things that this movie really, like, did well was like provide examples of people who will take a tragic situation like this and try to like gain something from it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. Once somebody is dead, I think it's kind of impossible for them not to become a prop. To me, and here, I'm just kind of spitballing here. So again, like, I don't know. I'm not asserting anything as much as I'm just kind of going off here.
Uh-huh.
If there is a way of relating to somebody that is one way, in that you do not need active feedback of another participant to have the kind of communication you're having, then you have objectified that individual. And so, when somebody dies, that is officially when they have no agency in your identifying or relationship to them. They are strictly a memory or an object for you to project your own understanding onto. And so, any way, because this character is dead, any way that anybody tries to draw any relevance, inspiration, communication from this dead person is not with Connor, an individual, but with the object of Connor, the idol. The dead body, as it were. The story of Connor, the idea of Connor, is the thing that every single person in this film relates to and draws whatever narrative they're going to draw from, because Connor is no longer an agent in this. He's dead, right? And so every single person that goes, wow, Connor's story was so inspiring to me, is not saying Connor has inspired me. They're saying the symbol, the object, Connor, whatever that comes to me now post-death, is what is important to me. Now, how I feel about that, I'm not entirely sure, because what this means is, and this is kind of a point that, you know, this play gets me to think on, is you have a dead person. You have a person who's dead, and if we have decided that an appropriate thing to do with a person after they die is create something or try to define something like a legacy, which is really just a narrative you put to somebody after they die, then what is the proper way to create that legacy? And should it be true or should it be beneficial when we do something like drafting a legacy? Because it's past the point where it has anything to do with the person, because the person has no say. So really what we're left is we have a dead person, and in truth, it could be that this person is not particularly inspiring, or that this person is not particularly wholesome or selfless. So with that, would it be more beneficial to craft a more inspirational, a more wholesome image of this person post-death, to do something like give some comfort and some sense of connection to the surviving family? Give some inspiration and some hope to people who have the same kind of mental disposition that this person might have. And if that is done over this person's dead body, is that a blasphemous thing to do to the life of the human being that it was? Or is it ultimately a good thing? Now that question gets muddled immediately by the fact that Evan Hansen, the person who is heading this crafting of legacy, is crafting a legacy that is benefiting him greatly, both socially and materially. And so it's hard, because if it is to be said that Connor's legacy really ought to be something that gets beautified, has some cosmetics applied to it, either in the sense that you're covering something up or revealing something that really ought to be the way that it be viewed, something more beneficial, it can't be Evan Hansen that's the one doing it. Because Evan Hansen clearly, the most egregious ones to me, of course, are the fact that he's now going to start dating the dead man's sister based off a legacy that he's fabricated. And B, is about to inherit a college fund that his parents had started to put aside to him and are now giving to Evan under the impression that there was a closeness and a bond that Connor might have wanted Evan to have this.
Yeah.
So those are two of clearly the most egregious ones. Maybe other than that, it's like being popular at school because his speech was so endearing and touching about what Connor would have wanted. Maybe after that, it's all the false hope and false idolatry that he's given to people who also struggle with depression and suicide in Connor's name with the foundation. The student council president has been put in a situation. So, yeah, we get it. There's tons of children's shows out there about how one little white lie can turn into a web of nonsense. And that's what a lot of this is. But I suppose my point is this. Connor is a prop because once somebody's dead, they have no more input. They have no more personage. They have to become an object.
Well, I guess even to that as well, it's like even moving past like the definition of a prop.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, that's fair.
I mean, no, to be fair, I'm the one who called him a prop.
apologies.
No, it's absolutely fine.
And I don't know if I'm making any sense at all when I'm speaking here.
I think so.
I'm just trying.
I'm also really tired, so maybe that plays into it.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think also it's like this kind of this question of like martyrdom, you know? Because like clearly it did not seem like Connor like asked to be, you know, this figurehead, this symbol, this martyr.
You just want it out, man.
But like you said, I mean, he's not an agent anymore. Like he doesn't really get a say in what is said and done with his image.
Right.
Which you know, it's interesting. Like, what is to be said from that? Like, it's not fair, but also again, it's like, well, what can be done about it?
Right. And furthermore, even if Connor would say, fuck every, 14-year-old that wants to kill themselves that reads my story, my fabricated story, and draws hope and decided not to kill themselves. I don't want them to get that hope from my name. Would it not also then be sensible to say, oh, well, thank Christ Connor isn't making this call? You know, because fuck it. If the dude really would have said, no, I don't want to be an inspiration to 14-year-olds, then maybe it's better that the agent that would have been Connor had he been alive is not here to put the ixnay on inspiring 14-year-olds not to kill themselves, right?
Yeah, no, that's
at least there's an
absolutely
argument to
true.
be made for that. I don't know. Again, I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't really have a prescription for this one way or the other.
I think that's really what it comes down to. Is it's just like this stuff is very fluid and not defined. You know, like there's not like a right answer.
Right. But needless to say, nothing so high-minded as this conversation was anywhere near Evan Hansen's mind through any of his actions in this film.
Absolutely not.
At least in this film. I don't know about the stage play. I don't know about
And it just gets
anything
worse
else.
and worse. As I said to you, for anybody who is familiar with The Office,
Right.
the entire movie to me, it felt like that awkwardness that you feel when watching Scott's Tots or the dinner party episode.
right.
But there's no humor to it.
Yeah.
It's just that uncomfortability of just oh no, no, Evan, don't do that.
Right.
And it's just that
Right.
constantly until finally he's like, oh, okay, you know what? I've had enough.
Right.
This ends. And then you're just like, oh, okay, well now I need to watch this kid do a half-assed thing. It's like, oh, well, he's forgiven now. It's like, no, he shouldn't be forgiven now. That was fucked up.
Right. Yeah, well, yes. Yeah. And I don't know that he ever is forgiven. I'm not sure. Granted, I mean, more power. Look. I've acted similarly to Evan Hansen in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I've been nervous and self-important. Thought my own gain was the most important thing to be done. So I've done stuff where I have fabricated or exaggerated things and let a truth slip and never bring it up, omit, and do things like this to my own benefit because it was either more comfortable or the alternative was preferable to speaking the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure I still have some of those that I'm taking to my grave or whatever, right? I haven't gone and done an amends list and hashed them all out.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think if I were interested in making amends to them, which I am, I would want to know that it's possible and that there are actions I could take to amend those types of omissions. Granted, I've never done anything quite so heinous as, profiteering off the death of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the big thing is of course, everybody has things that they have done wrong.
Right.
But I think that this movie really takes that to an extreme.
Yeah.
Because it's I'll use even an example from my own life. I mean, I'll be somewhat vague with it because there's no need to get into some of the super interesting details. But
I don't know if I don't know this story.
I mean, it's not so much a story; it's just a general thing. But it's just there are people in my life who it's they make my life considerably harder. And like, I would
Right.
say to some extent there's abuse that happens.
Right.
And like it can be said like, oh, well, this person has like severe mental illness and brain damage.
Right.
And that is why this is happening.
Right.
That is true, and I can acknowledge that, but that does not change the fact that abuse is happening.
Right.
It's not an excuse. It is
Right.
an explanation.
Right.
And it's the same thing with this movie. It's like Evan Hansen has his own problems, and this situation is not an easy one.
Right.
That is not an excuse for what happened.
Well, look, true. But here's the thing. Here's where I'll come from for it. The story, as far as I can tell, Evan Hansen did not say, I'm going to take advantage of this misunderstanding to profiteer. It very much did start off at, his mom is really fucked up here, and I'm going to try my best to offer her some kind of emotional comfort so I don't have to completely shatter her, inspirational fictional temple she's built in the name of her own son.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just feed into that here so that I don't have to shatter this woman's hope the day after her son killed herself. Then dinner, same deal. Like the family is there. Maybe there's additional pressure because he likes the sister. But, at that moment, he's not specifically trying to be like, oh, or at least as far as I can see, he's not like, oh, this isn't in with her. Like, oh, this is nice. And there seems to be no point where he intentionally says, oh, I'm going to try to use this to start a romantic relationship with her, as much as he's saying, I'm happy that this event allows me more time with the girl I have a crush on.
Mm-hmm.
So fair enough. Now, so he never starts saying like, yes, good, I can profiteer off that. There comes a point where it clearly starts benefiting him personally. And he simply says, okay, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm cool with that. In spite of how I got here and the fact that it's a lie, I am happy that these results are happening to me, and I am happy to let them happen to me. And he gets caught up in that. That's not excusable. That's not an excuse as to perpetuating the lie. And honestly, the more it starts to benefit you, the more that should compel you to say, all right, hey, look, this is getting too intertwined with me and my own. This has gotten far beyond why I got into this lie. I need to end this right now. And it is fair that it takes a moment of family's suffering outweighing his own personal gain before he says, okay, I made this all up, I have to come clean. Honestly, he should have done it when he started benefiting.
Mm-hmm.
He should have had the strength to do that. Should have.
Yes.
Quote unquote. Again, understanding the character, understanding humans.
Certainly.
If I were in a situation and the girl of my dreams was starting to date me now, fucking A. Like, I don't know if I'm really ready to like pull that trigger. Like, okay, look, I know this might destroy our relationship right after I've gotten everything I've ever wanted in life. But, I'm understanding this is benefiting me now, and I have to come clean as a moral human being. Like, I don't know. That's hard. That's a hard pitch, man. So I get it. Point being, after all of it comes down and he comes clean and he realizes, not even realizes, but finally has the courage to do what he knows he should have done in the first place, he owns up, he ends the behavior, and he is interested in redeeming himself and fixing himself. And I think it's important that that option be available. I mean, fuck. We theoretically offer that option for murderers, right? Like, people murder, and we say, all right, you do your time in jail, and we try to rehabilitate you and allow you to participate in society again. Now, we can argue over what the correct reprimanding and punishment is. Fair. But I think also it's important to say that there should be able to be some rehabilitation if we're interested in having a society where we are able to have people reintegrate, as opposed to having exile islands where we send all the undesirables.
No, I completely agree. I think that that is something that needs to be talked about on a wider scale.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's very true. I think that there is it's this whole thing about like accountability is different than ostracization or ostracization, whatever the word is.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. All the same, do not like the framing of this movie. It puts way too much of like him being like a good guy protagonist, despite very morally questionable things.
Yeah. 100%.
But that's more or less all I have to say on that. But I do have to say, I think it's really funny that once he kind of makes a decision after he's like come clean, where he's like, I'm gonna really do what I have to get to know Connor post mortem. And again, I'll again reiterate my point of like, hey, you probably should have done that when you were doing the lie, you know, to actually know this person.
Yeah, exactly.
But that being, despite that, as you mentioned, one of the ways that he does this is he like finds that thing in the yearbook that has like a list of all of his like favorite books.
Yep.
And so he like reads them and like finds that thing in the yearbook that has like a list of all of his like favorite books.
Yep.
And so he like reads them and like I do think that's a really like interesting way to try to get into someone's psyche.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I guess with books,
their fridge, their
bookshelf,
bookshelf, and their medicine cabinet.
Well, yeah, it's like I don't know. It's just like it kind of my thought process with it was like, does that mean that I think that somebody could like take a look at like this is the media Nate really enjoyed.
Right.
I'm gonna watch this and then I can know what it was like to know Nate.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I could say like, all right, cool, watch like the first saga of Dragon Ball Z and play some play some Dark Souls, and then you'll know what it's like to know me.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like I think I have a little bit more depth than the art and media that I consume, and I just think that was a really interesting take of like, well, I'll read the books that he read, and then I will feel comfortable in saying I did know him.
Oh, right, and again, like I would argue that you can't really make a claim to know or respect the personage of a person if all you need is one-way communication. Like,
yeah, no, I think that's a valid point.
Otherwise you're just kind of acting all the like signals of communication.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could do all the same exact stuff and have the participant in it or the object of it be completely silent and have the same result, I don't think you're really participating in communication or knowing, you know?
Yeah.
And again, like this is a larger point. Again, like this is Evan Hansen makes it evident that he doesn't really care about the inspiration or Connor's legacy as much as he does care about his own personal gain and his own personal sense of belonging, because the first thing he lets slip is the foundation and the people that are really trying to build this orchard and that inspirational thing. He lets that go completely in favor of his love life. So it's pretty clear how the more powerful attractant to him is his personal gain that he's gotten from this than like Connor's legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And B, again, I have to roll my eyes and kind of laugh when he's like doing one of the songs addressed to Zoe, and he's like, "How do I say I love you?" And I'm like, "That's a fucking farce." If you, dude, you've never spoken to the girl.
Okay,
there's
yes,
an entire point in the
100%.
fucking film about all you've done is study her behavior like Darwin would with some fucking finches, and then you go, "And I know her most intimately," and it's like you've never spoken to her.
Yes,
you have implanted on her behaviors your own narrative about where it comes from, and said, "I do love her, don't I?" And you go, "That's ridiculous. This is one-way communication." Clearly, all she had to do was just be and remain completely silent. And you've implanted an entire narrative in your head about who she is and the type of person she is.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing as like it's like just one step above what I was talking about with like I'll just consume the media that this person likes.
Exactly.
And it's like it literally is the equivalent of like this. The people who, you know, like watch the movies of a celebrity and they're like, I know this person.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't.
Right.
And no, I kind of forgot about that point, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that really annoyed me and upset me. Because again, it's just like, because I think it just kind of like, that should have been something that was addressed. Like in the many faults of Evan Hansen in this. Because I mean, you know, to some extent, they're like, look, he did some bad stuff, and we're going to atone for that. But like, yeah, it's never once like, hey, like you should get to know this person.
Right.
And yeah, frustrating. I did not like it.
Right. And it's hard because, I mean, like, of course, say that there is somebody who has recorded meticulously their entire journals every single day, their entire thoughts, has copious interviews talking about exactly the way they think and the person they are. There could probably be an argument made to say, like, oh, I really know this person. Like, I really know this person.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really important to me in relationships is that the person you know knows you. Like, that's one way in a completely different sense. Whereas that person spoke either to a journal or to a camera, and that was one way in that you didn't have to be there. You could have been completely silent and absent, in fact, and that conversation would have been entirely the same. To me, a sense of knowing is participating in something where you, the person you are, being a party member and an agent in the event, and the person you're talking with or having a conversation with or even existing with, being an agent on their end, are both irreplaceable in the event that has just taken place.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're not just talking, because that's what talking past each other is. When people say, like, oh, they just kind of talked at each other and then left. Like, if you, Nate, were here in this podcast thing and you could be switched out with, like, anybody or a chair for that matter, and this conversation could have been entirely the same, it could just be said that me and you just spoke in isolation.
Yeah.
And granted, we probably do that a fair amount,
Yeah.
to be fair. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. But to say that, like, I would walk away from the podcast and say, like, you know, Nate and I really deepened our bond.
Mm-hmm.
I really know Nate more. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
you know? So it's weird with stuff like that. I don't know. I've gotten really, that's a thing that's haunted me recently, I guess I should say. Because I heard it brought up where it's just like that one way, one dimensional. Like, it's weird to consider all the communications, quote unquote, I've had with people where they could have been swapped out with like a cardboard cutout, and it would have more or less been the same thing. And I think, oh, geez.
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think Evan Hansen's probably guilty of that, and then also saying, I love this girl, after he's just more or less seen a series of paintings in a gallery titled, like, Zoe, the exhibition. And then he goes, I've fallen in love with her. And dude, I get it. I totally get it. I implant and idolize the heck out of people. I've fallen in love with girls that walked by while I was on a Ferris wheel. Like, you know, I've done that. I've done that shit.
It's not to say that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I think it's a thing to be aware of. And
it's important to
recognize.
understand it's a delusion, man. It's important to understand that you're completely fabricating this nonsense. And in a certain sense, it's not true. And if you get too deep in it, it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, you know. So it's hard. Because the character of Evan Hansen in this film makes a lot of wrong turns. And maybe I'm overly charitable to the fella because I see a lot of myself in the fella, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm a bit more self-aware at this point, so I can be more charitable. But it doesn't seem like anybody around Evan Hansen or the film Evan Hansen has any interest in, like, unpacking why he did what he did. As much as they just go, like,
Yeah,
well,
sad.
yeah, you felt bad about what you did for evident reasons, and I'd be really curious to say, what do you think those reasons are to the character Evan Hansen?
Yeah.
I'd say, like, why do you feel like whack about what you did? You know, like, let's really unpack why you did what you did and why you now feel regretful for it. Because that's kind of where you really get into, like, what they actually learned from the whole experience, right? I don't know. But yeah, again, like, it feels like a very personal thing that anytime I see represented, it doesn't feel like my relationship with mental illness and the way I've confronted mental illness in life. And then it feels like it's put on by people who never even experienced the thing they're trying to put on stage. So what the fuck is that all about? That's weird, right? So I feel both off-put because I'm an angry fella, but when I set that aside and get more high-minded, I feel angry because I feel like an entire section of people is having an injustice done to them. And then C, the subject that this movie is trying to have a good, the theme that is trying to be addressed is a relevant and important theme in our times. And I think trying to address it in this way does more harm than good.
I think that is very true.
So that's where I'm at. And that's my big fucking speech.
I think the last
probably
point that
sound
I
like a
have
complete
before,
asshole. Oh my god.
the last thing I have
probably
to
made
say.
no fucking sense. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Go on.
Last thing I have to say before we read our reviews is the singing. The singing.
Okay.
So, as you pointed out, I have not watched a lot of musicals. But that being said, it seems to me that things were a little inconsistent as to when people were singing, if they were in universe, like talking,
Right.
or if they were not doing anything at all. Like, for example, of course, his speech.
Uh-huh.
His musical number in the movie was actually in universe a beautiful speech. However, when he's like singing in the very first song in the movie, and there's like a bit where he's like driving to school, and he's just like singing to himself.
Mm-hmm.
To me, maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember what the lyrics for that specific part were.
Right.
But it seemed very much like he was like not speaking to his mother.
Yeah, it was his internal voice.
It didn't seem like internal to me.
It was being sung very loudly directly at the camera.
Yeah, the musicals are weird like that. I didn't like that.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. I like Dr. Horrible's sing-along vlog. I like the way they did it.
Right.
It was like, especially because there were a few occasions in that I want to say movie, but I don't know if it's considered a movie. In that thing where like Dr. Horrible would like sing a song, and then like it would transition, like it was very clear like he's just singing to himself, and it's like he's not just talking in universe.
Right.
But then it would do like a transition into like him talking, and someone would be like, "Wait, what?"
Right.
And I like that. It was like it kind of broke the fourth wall a little bit, and it was cool. But this was like it took it a little too seriously for my taste. I was just like, I can't get over the fact that like this is supposed to be a very serious, heart-wrenching moment,
Right.
and you're like doing this like really over-the-top falsetto, like it's like and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it was too much for me.
Well,
Not-
that's fair. And yeah, there is something to be said about being able to elicit an emotion through your singing that is proper for the song. And I don't know that the fellow that was playing Evan Hansen elicited any of that from me.
That was another thing I thought was really interesting is like when the characters were like crying, they'd be like crying as they were singing.
Right.
Which like that was just a funny thought for me because I don't know exactly how all these movies are done stuff, but I would assume that especially for musical numbers, that the singing parts are probably recorded in a studio.
Yes.
And they probably lip sync them
Depends
for the thing.
on who's
And
directing it.
yeah, that's kind of how I imagined it.
Tom
But
Hooper.
all the same, it's just funny because I imagine that then they have to like be in the booth crying for, especially because it's not like the whole entire song. So it's like, all right, make sure that when you get to the second line of verse 2, you are in tears,
Right, right.
which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, most musical theater actors just know how to look like they're crying without actually crying when they're singing. Because actually crying, like, all the things involved with crying, like mucus and stuff like that,
very hard to talk,
makes it
let alone
fuck,
sing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really not encouraged that you actually cry while you sing. It will fuck with your vocals.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, is that, like, because it wasn't even just like, oh, he looks like he's crying. Like, no, there's certain, like, voice breaks and stuff where it's like, and it's like,
Yeah, I don't
There's
know
a lot
what
of
that
that.
was all about. Like, I don't know if you ever heard, like, Celtic singing voices. But
can't
like,
say I have.
there's like a weird like type thing that they
Yeah.
do, and there was a lot of that from Evan Hansen here.
Well, with that, are you ready to read some reviews?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I have my 5-star one here from Annalee Clark. Hey.
Yeah, that's my distant cousin or something.
Amazing. I am a huge fan of this musical and expected this film to not come anywhere near the musical and ultimately not be very good. That's an interesting way to phrase that. But I'm extremely happy to report this movie exceeded my expectations tenfold. Let's face it, 30-year-olds play 15-year-olds every day in Hollywood. That's Hollywood for you. So the fact that Ben Platt was playing Evan didn't bother me in the slightest. The music and emotion this movie shows is just beautiful. I found myself laughing and crying in the theater. I highly recommend for musical fans and beyond. Trust me, this movie will not disappoint.
Yeah, yeah, I have a hard time because again, like, you know, if someone walks into that and walks out feeling more empathetic and more aware of mental health issues, I mean, yeah, good. I would just like to know what they think they're walking away with, I guess, would be my thing, you know? I don't know. It's hard to generalize how everyone deals with their own nonsense. And so it's weird when people walk away like, I learned something. I'd like to be like, what did you learn, though?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I learned. I don't know if I would approach anybody that has like an anxiety issue and be like, all right, let me think back to Evan Hansen and how did they act and how would I comfort them in this situation? Because that's how I understand anxiety issues now. Like, I don't know. Everyone's so unique. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there were many like takeaways from that movie.
I'm going to go with Kaylin Worthington. And this is, you know, again, like defenses of this film are going to be in the 5 stars. And so here we go. Let's hear your counter arguments against my kind of pessimism. Anyway, I was literally in the theater alone, sobbing more than I ever had. Their performances were phenomenal on all ends. Amazing vocals. Beautiful and raw story of a teen who was looking to be rescued from his own sad story and took on the persona of a hero. Recognizing his own lie, one he so wanted to believe, he eventually told the truth and saved the family's reputation of the boy who committed suicide, while struggling with wanting to die himself. He found courage in how many people empathized with mental health issues, and the community was brought together. But when he did tell the truth, things fell apart. But like his mom said, this is a learning moment, and someday we'll be so far away. It goes into trauma and what a family with absent parents is like. I was bawling at Evan Mom's song. All the songs were so powerful. I genuinely don't understand why people in reviews are saying this wasn't good. The main character wasn't in the right? Okay, but he was true and raw. You don't like the actor because he's too old? Okay, that seems to undercut the message of mental health awareness. That being said, come on, we gotta stop it. You stop that. All right. That being said, keep in mind that I haven't read the book or seen the play. However, I am grateful to have witnessed this life-changing movie. I would say some of their interpretations of the motivations of the character and the story are not my own understanding and interpretations of the character or the story. But God bless them for being so
optimistic.
Yeah.
My
charitable.
My favorite part was so the actor's too old. Okay.
I think it's interesting how it's like you're pointing out that the actor is so old for playing a high school student that it breaks immersion. But I feel like you bringing that up is undercutting the mental health message of the film. And I would say maybe. I don't know. If the mental health message of the film is like, hey, they're high schoolers struggling with depression and mental health issues, we see you.
Yourself.
And you can see a conduit in Avatar here in our show. And then, like, the conduit in Avatar these teenagers are seeing on screen is a 26-year-old man who looks like he's in his mid-30s. I don't know how much of an Avatar conduit that's going to feel like to a senior in high school. Yeah. So, I don't know. It seems like the casting is really important to not undercutting the message and connection you want to have with your film. Maybe that's me, though.
Yeah, no, honestly, I have so far not really said anything aside from the review that I read about Ben Platt's age.
Ben Platt.
Yeah, that's the guy's
The
name.
producer was Mark Platt.
But yeah, no, I completely agree. It's wild.
And again, you know, far be it from me to harp too hard on like the fact that the lead in the show is the producer's son. But like, again, how does this not taint similarly to someone like Evan Hansen profiteering off the death of Connor Murphy
parallel
in the play for personal gain? How again can the message of mental health awareness not feel somewhat compromised by the fact that one of the people who produced this show has their own child in the lead role of the film? This film that seems to be predicted to be this inspirational conduit. How does that not compromise it in itself? Like, come on. Anyway.
I'm going to read my 1-star review now.
Yeah, go on.
This is from Havoc Reeker.
Havoc Reeker.
This was a horrible movie. The plot was subpar at best. It's also a musical, which wasn't advertised at all. Which I kind of track with that. I was also surprised, and when I found out it was a musical,
There are no less than 12 poorly timed songs that made the scene almost unbearable to watch. It was hard to watch at some point because of the acting to singing, then back to acting that was going on. The movie was 30 minutes too long, and that's being generous. The one point in the movie that you had me invested in ended about 10 minutes. They either put too little information in scenes and made it boring and drawn out, or they ruined a moment with a song. Pick your poison, I guess. Overall, the movie was bad. It was so bad that I had two people in front of us literally got up and left halfway through. The ending was the worst part of the movie. There are very little endings worse than that one. If you like musicals that make the movie quality go all the way down, then this is the movie for you. I'm not going to lie. This was one of the first movies in a very long time that I was like, I would not mind leaving.
Right.
But of course, I was invested for the show.
Yeah, it was one of the first movies in a long time that I started hitting my own head because I was super fucking bored. And I do that when I'm like
boring.
absent-mindedly, just numbingly bored. Like I just start like kind of knocking my own body against stuff. You know,
The songs
stare
were
at the ceiling for a bit.
the songs were definitely like bad to subpar.
Yeah, it's hard.
And they were really fucking long. They didn't need to be as long as they were. Every time a song went on, it was like it just went on for too long. It just was really, really infuriating.
Look, the songs, I'm not going to say they were poorly composed. They just weren't my type of songs. So,
I think, again, even aside from them just being, like, written badly or anything, like, maybe they're fine. They were too long. Like, they were not captivating enough for me to sit there for the entire duration and be like, okay.
I would say that they're probably the standard musical length.
I don't know. Maybe they're just boring, and that's why it felt.
Well, yeah,
like
maybe
an
it drags
eternity.
on because they felt long to me. But yeah, the musicals are hard because you have to make a shot. You have to call your shot with like, will people like these songs? Are these good songs for most people? And I already have weird music taste. One could argue.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I like other musicals. So whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't be too judgmental. I'm
But yeah,
not a
they
big
say-
musical fan. I've never tried to write a musical. I'm sure I probably couldn't.
Oh, we'd fucking kill it. Let's do it. Come on.
What the hell was that, the musical?
What? Yeah, what the hell was that, the musical? I'm the stairs, I'm the stairs. Is there anyone who
cares? Oh, God, what a good bit. That's probably my favorite with Bob and David bit.
Oh, God. But yeah, they made a point. The point that the part that they were invested in lasted 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what part they were talking about.
I don't either.
The only one I can think of is like the actual like part where Zoe and Evan start dating. 'Cause they have a whole song and montage where they're dating. But I don't know what else they could possibly have been only 10 minutes represented in the film. Anyway, then they make a point about how moments are ruined by the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that in musicals, the songs are meant to expand upon and really drive home the mood of a scene. And so maybe that's where the musical failed for you. But if your point is that songs just on the face of them interrupt moods, then I just don't think you're quite ready to... Not quite ready. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're framing musicals in general in the right kind of way.
I guess if my defense of this guy then is that, again, they didn't know it was a musical until they were there because the advertising was not very clear upon that. Which I'll agree with that. Again, I mean, I knew going into the movie it was a musical.
Right.
I did not know that based on the trailer. I knew that because somebody else told me it was a musical.
Yeah, exactly. Same. I found out like secondhand. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe to their credit, they thought they were just seeing a teen drama type dealio, and then it turned out to be a musical, and maybe they aren't the musical type.
From what I understand, it's quite a popular musical for people who know musicals, though. So,
well, I don't know musicals.
Jessica Nguyen says 1 star. Didn't know this was a musical. My fault. Should have done my research before watching, I guess. I was interested in the movie because of the trailer, which didn't not show that it was going to be a whole musical. I was ready for an emotional movie. I was ready to cry my eyes out. But I ended up laughing throughout the whole thing because it was straight cringe. The acting was kind of bad, or maybe the script wasn't written well. There was no chemistry between the characters. The weird breakout in songs where it's supposed to be emotionally sad/depressing was awkward and bad. I don't hate musicals, but singing should not be mixed with a plot that talks about suicide, depression, and anxiety. Compared to The Greatest Showman, this is dirt. Please, do not waste your money or time watching this movie unless you love musicals. Also, if you have depression or suicidal thoughts, please, don't watch this. It might trigger you because of how bad they portray real people. And you know, Diane, I think you probably called your shot because you can color me triggered, I guess. I don't know what else I would describe the emotional that seems to have evoked me to go on like a 3-hour combined like fucking rant.
Yeah, no,
about,
this
like,
movie upset me
depression,
for
anxiety, what it's really like, what it really means, and the portrayal of it, and the kind of fucking baseless pandering that it feels like this movie had done. I don't know about the stage play. I don't know about the book. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
But
no,
if this movie is meant to represent it, like, fuck.
I think you might have said something to this effect already, but yeah, I mean it's upsetting because it's hard to say because of course everybody I'm sure has different experiences with these types of things, but like with my own experiences of how I've felt with depression, anxiety, and the occasional suicidal thoughts, this movie did not speak to me in any capacity. Again, it made me angry more than anything else. Not even because of, or I won't say not because of, but not solely because of the portrayal of certain things, but just, the framing of this movie in general. There are a lot of things I just didn't like about it. And I hate for this to be the movie that's like mental health advocacy. I think there are probably more inspirational stories to be told that are better conduits for these kinds of conversations than this movie.
Yeah.
And also, I thought it was boring.
Yeah, fucking not to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, please put forth anything else you think, but I feel like I've said my piece on this thing.
No, yeah. Look, I don't know if they cut songs for time. I know movies tend to do that. They'll cut songs from the play. I have no idea. But it's hard because even with the immense amount of sympathy one might garner, it's hard to see things progress as much as they did with such a kind of flimsy justification, all in all, So the character is a hard one to really be like, no, they were purely intentioned throughout. I don't think that's the case. I think it pretty much shows how they kind of go into the self-involved kind of route,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it's hard. I think I've probably said as much as I'm not very articulate, and I'm not particularly knowledgeable nor wise. So sometimes I get into this type of stuff, and then I start to talk about it, and then I just like get so wrapped up, and then there's actors on screen, and they're all so selected to be so like. It's this big hodgepodge of stimulation that's so much for my fucking sensitive mind. And then I start to talk, and then I think, like, why am I even talking about this? What is the point of any of this? Am I really the dude who ought to be talking about this? And then I think I might as well move into a wine cask on Market Street, full Diogenes style. Because fuck me, who am I? So this stuff tends to really get me, like, riled up and then shut down subsequently. Because, it's just one of those things. It touches all those nerves.
Was there a scene where Evan Hansen and Zoe kissed?
Yeah.
Okay, I might have missed that when I was in the bathroom.
Yeah,
I was just curious because I just looked up the actress's age,
right?
And she is 24. But I'm not familiar with the actress.
Right.
If you told me that she was like 18,
right.
I would have believed it.
Yeah.
And I know that Ben Platt's like 27, so I was like, I don't like that. But
right, yeah, I'm almost
whatever.
certain they chose the student council president and Zoe based off the doe-eyedness of their respective actresses.
Yeah, but
because it's hard to find actresses so diaphanous and doe-eyed.
Quite.
Yeah.
Well, would you like to do our ratings?
Sure.
Do you want to go first or want me to?
No, I'll go first. I'll go first because
Okay.
yours is probably going to be a better end point. Look, I've said everything I can say, and I don't even know if I should even try to get on it, because I don't know if I make sense half the fucking time, or if I'm just one big pretentious knob, and every time I try to every time I try to be genuine, I don't know if I'm just so deeply cloaked in, like, masturbatory pontificating that I just can't even see past my fucking self anymore. So I don't know if I've said anything of value. And if anything can be gleaned, I hope I've made myself clear and said something sensible and genuine, because that's how I felt when I was saying it. So I hope that's come across. And so with all of that, I think it's pretty understandable why I'm going to be giving this a rating of... out of... And that's about all I can really say.
Yeah, I think I've been very forward in that I didn't like this movie. There's not really anything about it that I really can say that I enjoyed. It was boring. I didn't like the messaging, the phrasing, or the framing rather. I didn't really like anything about it. And furthermore, it is October while we're recording this,
Right.
and we still have some more Halloween episodes to do.
Ooh.
I would so much have rather watched like Halloween 3, honestly. That being said, I'm glad we watched it. We talked about it a lot. I think we built it up a little bit more than we should have. But
just internally before we went and watched it.
Yeah. I figured I would watch this and it would not be great, but I could have some fun with it.
It was exactly what I expected, frankly.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is a me problem, but
I don't know. I know how the teenage suicide stories go. I know this. I know this bend.
Yeah, but yeah, I think with that, it's very easy to see that it gets out of for me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you rate a movie that poorly, you just wish that you didn't have to.
Yeah, well,
I wish that I could give it a better rating,
but
I just can't. I can't. I can't in good conscience.
No, absolutely.
Tell our viewers a lie when it comes to that. So
100%.
And with that, I hope you enjoyed that and got some value out of that. I am so tired, and this movie just was exhausting to me.
Yeah, we gotta do again. And you kind of brought this point up. I don't know if this is a comedy show per se, but the tone of this one definitely means we have to go full out of this world zany next time.
You're absolutely
right.
Dude,
we really got to do Tokyo Drift, and I'm tired of whoever's stonewalling this fucking screening of Tokyo Drift, because every time I propose it, it's something else. And granted, I understand it's Halloween season. When we got Halloween Kills and we got Candyman, we got to watch. I get it.
Yes.
But Tokyo Drift has been delayed for far too long, and I have not given up on Fast and Furious.
No, nor have I. I was thinking about it a lot today, actually. But we have to...
A Fast and Furious film delayed is a Fast and Furious film deterred.
Yes, no, certainly. We need to get back on that. Rest assured, listener, the saga is not over. We're seeing this through. I guess if it comes down to it, if we can't organize some time with Diego, we're just going to have to tell him tough, and we're going to have to watch it by ourselves.
I won't accept that. I won't accept that at all.
Well, but Mike, you can't have it both ways.
Yes,
I'm trying my best here.
I don't care if we have to abduct Diego and strap Diego down to a chair to watch Tokyo Drift and then do a podcast. I will attach strings like a marionette to Diego and do a corny Diego voice while Diego sits and is forced to participate in this podcast.
Yeah.
But we're doing Tokyo Drift with Diego. No option.
Yeah, let's maybe Monday we'll try to make it work.
Hell yeah.
Farewell, everybody.
So long. Dear everybody. Goodbye.